So hopefully you're thinking to yourself, geez, Lana, I would really like a different way to do factoring, but that wasn't quite so drawn out as that trial and error method. And I'm here to help. So remember this one, this 3x squared plus 16x minus 12. That was the longest one because it had all these different combinations. Okay, so let me go copy something. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to teach you a better way, a faster way, a way that isn't quite so prone to errors and all around screwing up as that way. And I think it's going to be a lot simpler for you. So let me just rewrite the problem here. It's 12 is equal to, and then we'll figure out what these are in a second. Okay, so the method is called factoring by grouping, and it's the same factoring by grouping that you already learned. Now the deal is that we learned it a little bit in a couple pages ago, and it was when it had 4 terms. So what we're going to do is we're going to transform our problem from having 3 terms to having 4 terms. I know, it seems crazy, but remember factoring by grouping was actually pretty easy. So if we could just turn it into 4 terms, things would be grand. Okay, now here's the deal. We need things to multiply to AC. Now A times C is equal to 3 times negative 12, which in our case was negative 36. So we need numbers that multiply to negative 36. But we're going to need them to add up to positive 16 because that's our middle term. So, okay, so you need to start thinking of numbers that multiply to negative 36 but are going to add up to 16. Okay, so let's try. There's 1 and negative 36. Or there's negative 1 and positive 36. Now, 1 and negative 36 makes 35, negative 35, and then positive 35. So those two are out. Then you could try 2 and negative 18. That makes negative 16. And then negative 2, positive 18. That makes positive 16. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. There it is. So you just go until you find the combination that works, that has what you want in it, which in our case was we want it to add up to 16. Okay, so you take A times C, that's what it says. That's step 1. Find A times C. You find all the products of A times C, and then you figure out which ones will add up to 16. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to take these two numbers, negative 2 and positive 18, and you're going to break up that middle term right there. See where it was 16x? You're going to break it up into 2 pieces. You're going to make it 2x, mean negative 2x, plus 18x. Now, let me write it out. It's 3x squared minus 2x plus 18x minus 12. You're taking the middle term and you're going to break it up. Matter of fact, I'm just going to write it break into negative 2 plus 18. Right? That's your plan. I'll just leave it up. Okay? So here it is right here. Now I know you're thinking that doesn't look simpler, that looks harder. Oh, but it's not, because we can now factor by grouping. We can group together those first two and we can group together these back two because it now has 4 terms. All right, so look at the first two. They have x in them. So I'll take an x out. That'll leave me 3x minus 2 plus, now the back two have, well, you could put 2 in there, but you want to go for the biggest thing you can. So 2 would work, 3 would work, but 6 would work, and 6 is biggest. So I'm going to go with 6. That leaves me 3x minus 2. Oh, look at that. Because now these both have 3x minus 2's in them. So I can write 3x minus 2, x plus 6. And that's the same answer that we got with trial and error. It's a little bit cleaner and a little bit easier than trial and error, as long as we're talking about ones where A is not equal to 1. Okay, so this method for trial and error, all that stuff, or you just make a little quick table, you figure out what are the multiples of negative 36, because A times C is negative 36, then you figure out which one adds up to 16, and then you break up your middle term into those two numbers, negative 2 and positive 18. You factor by grouping in 2 steps and you're done. Cool, huh? Now keep in mind, you only want to do all this rigmarole if A is not 1. If A is 1, that's these ones. That's simple, right? You're like, oh, 12. 12 is 4 and 3. 4 and 3 make 7, right? You don't have to do this whole table and all of that. I did it for the notes, but you can kind of do those in your head. But when A is not 1, you really can't do those in your head unless you're a math teacher, right? But in general, they're really tricky to try to do in your head. This method gets you out of doing it in your head. It allows you a way that will get you out of doing it in your head, which is essentially what trial and error is trying to do it in your head and then checking yourself. Now, the one thing else I will say is that the great thing about this is that you'll know the right answers right away. Like, this will never lead you astray. You're not going to find wrong answers. And what if it's prime? If it's prime, you can spend a long time trying to do these ones and not realize that it's prime. That's a problem, right? But if it's prime with this method, you'll find out real quick because there's no combination that's going to make what you need. Okay? So fabulous. All right. Okay, so let's see if we can do this. I got this other problem, which we did right here, right there. Okay, so let's see here. Let me type it up. One sec. Okay, so A times C on this one was 48. So we need them to multiply to 48, but we needed to add up to negative 19. Now think about what that means. If you're going to multiply two numbers and get a positive number, but they're going to add up to a negative, it means it's got to be negative. So negative 1 and negative 48. That would make negative 49. That's no good. And since I don't have to do this flip-flopping thing because I don't have a plus and a minus. When they're plus and minus is when it's the worst because then you got to try two different combos. But when it's positive, you can go, okay, negative 2, negative 24. That would make negative 26. That's no good. Negative 3 and negative, oopsie, negative 16. There it is. There's your winner. You can just stop right there. You're done. Once you find the one that adds up to what you were looking for, you're finished. So I'm going to take that middle term of negative 19. I'm going to break it up into, so let me see, negative 3x minus 16x. So instead of writing it like it is, so I write 6x squared minus 3x minus 6x plus 8. And now again, factoring by grouping. Right? Oh, sorry, 16x, my fault. 16x. Okay, so factoring by grouping, if I look at the first two, they have 3x in common. So I can take a 3x out. That'll leave me x, or 2x minus 1. Because 3 times 2 makes 6. 3 times negative 1 makes negative 3. Now if you look at the back two, 8 comes out, right? Because 8 goes into 8, 8 goes into 16. But if you do plus 8, you're going to have negative 2x plus 1, which is exactly the opposite of what you want. You need the parentheses to be identical. So what you can do is take out a negative 8 instead. If you take out a negative 8, it'll turn it to positive 2 and minus 1. And then that's it. So it'll be 2x minus 1, 3x minus 8. Finished. You didn't have to do all this stuff where you had to find all these combos and try it out. The combos you find are right here. Much simpler. You don't have to FOIL. All you do is you figure out different things that multiply to 48 and then you check what they add up to and you're finished. Cool, huh? Sorry, I paused it for a second because I actually want to throw in one more example for you guys so that you guys can see an example that's not going to work out pretty. So I threw in this one, which is 2x squared minus 14x minus 11. So I wanted you just to see. I can just delete all that. Okay, so I want it to multiply to a times c, which is 2 times negative 11, okay, which would be negative 22. Okay, so if that's the case, actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to change this on you. I'm going to make it 12 just because 22 is so obviously not going to work. All right, so let's make it 12. So if I do 12, then it's negative 24. I'm hoping this works because I just made this up as I'm going. Okay, so what are some things that can make negative 24? Well, it could be negative 1, positive 24. That would make 23. It could be positive 1, negative 24. Now again, you got to check both combos because this is negative, right? So that's negative 23. Then you could have negative 2, positive 12. That would make 10. Or positive 2, negative 12. That would make negative 10. Or you could have negative 3. I'm trying to keep this in the same order, so I'm doing the negatives first. Negative 3, positive 8. That would make 5. Or positive 3, negative 8. That would make negative 5. or let's see, oops, I ran out of space, 4 and 6. Hold on. There we go, I'm back. All right, so negative 4, 6, which would make 2, or 4, negative 6, which would make negative 2. Do you see what happened? None of them worked. And therefore, it's prime. Now, a lot of students, when they look at this, they try to make these ones work because 2 plus 12 makes 14. See what I did there? I'm kind of tricky, yes? But none of these are going to work. The sucker is prime. And you're going to spot it really quickly. That's a lot faster, believe it or not, than trying to do all of this. Going through all these different combos like this and trying to foil every one of them out and see if any of them work, that's going to take you a really long time. This is actually much faster just with straight up numbers. Numbers are much quicker to be able to figure out whether or not it adds up to what you want, without the outers and the inners and the lasts and all that stuff. And that's what you got to do when you do these ones. You're supposed to be, first, outers, inners, lasts constantly. Whereas here you don't need to bother. You can just do the list of all the things that make negative 24 and then see if any of them add up to negative 19. If they don't, you're prime. And one other thing real quick is that I go in order. When I do this, I don't know if you caught it, but I'm starting at like 1 and I work my way up. Start at 1, then go to 2, then go to 3, then go to 4, and so on. If any of them don't work, I would skip them. Like, I don't know. If 4 didn't go into, or let's see, 5. 5 doesn't go into 48, so I would skip 5 and move on to 6, or whatever. So you do all the combos that actually fit. Like in this one, I would stop because 5 won't go into 24, that kind of thing. So you just start with 1. 1 goes into 24 24 times. 2 goes into 24 12 times. Try both combos. 3 goes in. 4 goes in. Skip 5. Try 6, etc., etc. All right, we're done with that, and I hope that was enjoyable. And I will see you back here for the next section, which is actually the simplest factoring. So we went from the hardest factoring possible, which is actually this trial and error stuff, to the simplest factoring you're going to have, which is the difference of squares and sum and difference of cubes. So I'll see you here then.